This next set of lectures, we're going to be talking about power and political behavior. We'll start out talking about power. And when we look at power, it's the ability to influence another person. And one can learn to effectively use power by employing either their influence or authority or both. There is a zone of indifference, a range in which attempts to influence a person will be perceived as legitimate. So they may buy into it because they know that it's legitimate and you have the power, and so therefore they're going to buy into it. And it can be acted on without a great deal of thought. But what managers have to do is to enlarge the employee's zone of indifference. And enlarging the zone, if it's accomplished, is done with power or an ability rather than authority or a right. So if we look at interpersonal forms of power, and these French and Raven has identified 5 forms of interpersonal powers that managers use. They use reward power. That's the first one we're going to talk about, and it's based on an agent's ability to control rewards that a target wants. And so with reward power, that's salary increases, bonuses, promotion, a clear link to better performance, and it does have that. But it has, if it's used effectively. But the other one would be coercive power, and that's based on an agent's ability to cause an unpleasant experience for the target, and that can be done through threats and punishment. Managers using this power may be verbally abusive or withhold support. If you've ever seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada, that is Meryl Streep does a great job. Miranda is her name, and the person in the lead in that, and it's a great showing of coercive power. Now, I will tell you, reward and coercive power, they're the least effective of the powers, but they're the most used. Legitimate power is also not as effective, but it's based on position and mutual agreement. And to work, the employee has to believe that the manager has the right to tell them what to do. It's a legitimate person. It's their supervisor. It's hierarchical in the chain of command. Referent power is based on interpersonal interaction. Charismatic individuals are often thought of to have referent power, and surprisingly, the agent doesn't need to be a supervisor to the target or supervise them in any way. It can be someone that you really admire that you work with, and they have referent power, and it can be someone within the organization, again, that's not a supervisor, but they hold a lot of power. And then there's expert power, and that exists when an agent has specialized knowledge or skills that the target needs. And the target must trust the expertise given is accurate, and conditions have to be in place for that. The knowledge has to be relevant. The target's perception of the agent as an expert is crucial. And expert power, what we're saying is expert power is power of the future. And that expert power can be your IT person. It can be the person that has the knowledge that you need. Maybe they can run the reports. It's someone that you're highly dependent on. Let's look at intergroup sources of power. That's groups or teams within an organization can also use power from several sources. And one of those is control of critical resources. One group is said to have power when it controls an important resource that is desired by another group. And groups seen as powerful tend to be given more resources from top management. And there's strategic contingencies, activities that other groups depend on in order to complete their task. Groups also have power to the extent that they control certain situations. Others, it's factors that can give group control. Another is factors that give groups control over strategic contingency. And that's the ability to cope with uncertainty. If a group can help another group deal with uncertainty, it has power. And that can be your legal department. That can be if you're the person within your organization in a university setting. If you're the person that knows how to operate and work Canvas, which is our learning platform system, then you have power within that to the group that doesn't know how to do it. There's a high degree of centrality. If the group's function is important to the organization's success, it has high centrality. And non-substitutability. The group is indispensable to the organization. You need them. Again, I always throw up IT people because we need them, and we need them to be able to function today and keep different, everything running at work. Criteria for power-based related behavior to be considered ethical. Utilitarian outcomes. Behavior should result in the greatest good for the greatest number of people. It also should have individual rights. Rights such as free speech, privacy, due process should be respected. And then distributive justice. All parties should be treated equally and fairly. Positive versus negative power, because there is positive, and there's two distinct faces of power according to McClellan. And we studied McClellan, remember, in motivation. One of those is negative, one is positive. So let's look at them in the faces of power. Personal power. Used for personal gain. That's a manager that's power hungry, and individuals who rely on personal power to an extreme are considered Machiavellian, and that those are the people that the high max will do anything to get ahead in the organization. They will, I think I've said it before, they'll knock a body down and walk over them to get to where they want to be. So that's the negative face of power. The high max, again, they are willing to manipulate others for their personal gain. And then there's social power, and that's used to create motivation or to accomplish group goals. McClellan clearly favors this method, and it's a positive face of power. More on that. Power-oriented characteristics of managers who use power successfully. They believe, or they have belief in the authority system. These managers believe the institution is important and that the authority system is valid. They have a preference for work and discipline. They like their work and they're orderly. Altruism. They publicly put the company and its needs before their own needs. And a belief in justice. And they believe justice is to be sought before all else. And they will hold true to that. And these are the people that want the situations to be fair, and they want them to be equitable. Let's look at Cantor's symbols of power. And these are characteristics of powerful people within your organization. They have the ability to intercede for someone in trouble. So they know how to get people out of a jam. And they're the person you need to go to if you're needing, you feel like you're in a situation where you've got to have reprieve. You've got to have someone standing in there for you. They have the ability to get placements for favored employees. They know how to get key promotions for the people that they like. They can exceed their budget limitations. They can go over budget. They can do that, and they're not going to get in trouble, where someone else that doesn't hold that power would be in terrible trouble. Procuring above average raises for employees. So they're the ones that can get their employees more money than anyone else in any other department. They get their items on the agendas at meetings. So they have a voice. They have a seat at the table. They can raise issues for actions at meetings. They have access to early information. So these are the people, they're plugged in. They know what's going on, and people are freely giving them information. And then having top managers seek out their opinion. And this is where top managers are going to have a question. They go to this person to ask them their opinion and what is going on within the organization. And Cantor also had symbols of powerlessness. And these are your first-line supervisors. They're overly close supervision, inflexible adherence to rules, and a tendency to do the job themselves, so they're not delegating. Staff professionals, these are the people, if they're resistant to change, or they just try to protect their turf. It's never been done this way. Don't try to come in here and change it. Don't try to do anything. Top executives, these are the ones, if they're powerless, they focus on budget cutting and they focus on punishing others. They use dictatorial, top-down communication instead of talking and being out amongst their people. And then managers make external attributions for negative events. Again, I go back to locus of control. How many times have I brought that up? It's external or internal locus of control. And this type of manager has an external. They are out to get him, and they are attacking him instead of taking, and it's internal instead of taking responsibility for what happens. And then Corda has some symbols of power, because often we look at some, and it's semi-serious, it's some of the tangible symbols of power. That can be office furnishings. That conveys message about powers. It's your desk size, locked filing cabinets, diplomas all over the wall, plaques all over the wall. I want people to see I am powerful. Time power. It involves using clocks and watches as power symbols. You probably have seen those people even that keep their phone out, and I've got to be looking at it in meetings. They may not even, they may not wear a watch. They may have a full calendar, and it's hard to get in with them because I've got to see if I can squeeze you into my schedule. And then standing by. It's a game in which people are obligated to keep their cell phone, pagers, so forth with them at all times because an executive out there needs to meet with them, or they're so important that someone is going to have to get in touch with them and they have to be accessible. Okay, this is it for power. I'm going to come back here and we're going to have our next lecture, and it will be on the political behavior in organizations.